This is Chris Ruddy, and I love Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. Make sure you're tuning in just like I do every day, every week, every minute.
With breaking news and political commentary from a public servant, serial entrepreneur, community leader, philanthropist, and American patriot, and a darn nice guy, it's time for the GrassRoots TruthCast and your host, Gene Valentino.
Hi friends, Gene Valentino. Welcome back to another episode on Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. I'm proud to have Clara Del Villar with us today. She's with Schola Labs. She's with me by Zoom out of her operation in New York City. I had the privilege of meeting Clara recently on an unrelated venue, and we had the chance to explore, of all things, the future of education in the United States and where it's going. Clara, thanks for joining us here today.
Gene, I'm delighted to join you and to be with you and talk about all things education.
And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a deep dive on all things education when we come back right after this.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic MyPillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to GrassRoots TruthCast. Today's episode is with Clara Del Villar. Clara is with Schola Labs. Schola Labs, Clara, is a very interesting concept. Tell us what Schola Labs does.
Thank you again, Gene. I'm really happy to be here joining you and spending time discussing these issues. Obviously, in my opinion, I think education in the K through 12 demographic is the most important issue facing our country. And what many of your viewers may or may not be aware of, the school choice movement, known as universal choice or open enrollment, has been in action for the last 30 years, which means that that so many advocates and administrators and folks have been interested in shifting the public school education mode to modernize it, to give more choices to parents so that they can find the optimal education platform for their children. And while I've been involved philanthropically with entrepreneurial ventures and nonprofit groups that help provide grants to children in low-income areas or troubled neighborhoods to give them more opportunities, the school choice movement now has really gained rapid speed, which means that a portion of the public school money will be placed in parents' hands so that they can decide to take their child to another public school or a private school or homeschooling. They can provide access. And what Schola Labs does is provide the up-to-date innovative technology to smooth this process, both for the school administrator, and the parent, so that they can seamlessly keep track of the funding.
So it's a technology platform, but what I find interesting, Claire, about it, which is what turned me on about this topic that you're involved in, is that it sits against a backdrop of a failing educational system in this nation. This nation has injured itself with the way it's mismanaged its education. Let's start at the national level first. I find it most interesting that Donald Trump, while we are a few weeks before a November 5th election, we find the Republicans and the Trump regime talking up the takedown of the national educational system, the Department of Education, as we've known it on the federal level, and shifting its burden to states. While a lot of that seems appealing to me, I'm concerned about how we might lose standardizations nationwide, like the scholastic aptitude test I'm used to when I was in high school getting ready for college. The SAT was what everyone was sweating over during their junior and senior years of high school. Now, today, the focus is it's as if it's not a concern at all. The attention and rhetoric going on in the college level systems has muted the issues of and the importance of a lot of these standards, and the mother and father are finding themselves in a situation of having to say, what do I do about the education of my child through elementary, secondary, and secondary school systems before they even get into college? What do you say about this Schola Labs initiative? Are you finding it popular? Where in the nation is it popular? Is it in red states or blue states? Let me let you answer.
Sure, of course. And so, as you know, you've opened up a very complex topic. So let me focus on the K through 12 area and
Okay.
how this issue in school choice blew open during the COVID period, when parents started to see their child sitting in front of a laptop because they couldn't go into the schools. And parents started to realize that the quality of the education of their children, in K through 12 was not what they expected it to be. And for a long time, for many years, particularly Gene, in the low income areas. So I'm talking about troubled communities in Harlem, in Bronx, in Detroit, in Philadelphia, in Maryland, in places in Maryland where children are graduating without being able to high school, without being able to read or write, without the competency to read at grade level. And so we're looking at a period of time where costs have never been higher. You're not going to be able to buy a $50,000 home.
Yeah.
Education costs are higher. And so children are at a point where they aren't being able to read, write, or do math problems. What kind of job opportunities await them, let alone entry into higher academic universities where they can continue to hone their skills? So the point here is that educational choices for K through 12 are made by the Board of Ed. So to clarify, while we have the Department of Education, certainly in Washington, and it really isn't going to be dismantled, Board of Ed, K through 12 is really decided state by state and school board by school board. There are 98,000 public schools around the country, and they have school boards, and those school boards make decisions about how the lesson plans are going to be, how the teachers' unions weigh in on what the lesson plans should be. And when there was a shift that happened where in K through 12, particularly that, fifth grade to high school level, where all of a sudden sexual education classes or all kinds of other classes started being integrated away from the standard educational choices that we had when we were growing up: mathematics, geometry, English, geography. There's no geography taught in schools anymore, in public schools. So when those lesson plans started to shift to more generic and less robust educational choices, parents started to get furious. And
Yeah.
Florida led the way. Governor Jeb Bush looked at the educational rankings of particularly the Black and Latino families and saw them at the bottom of the barrel of the 50 states. And he said, I'm going to change this by allowing parents, if they aren't happy with the public school where their child is because of educational quality or because of safety, they have the right to move their child from the zip code where they are to another zip code so they get a better education.
Clara, is this let me get political for a second.
Of course.
Is your service finding roots um, the red states or the blue states? Do you find more need in sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, or where do you go with your service? Where is it most popular?
Well, to answer your question quickly, the red states are taking the lead. So if Florida took the lead, Arizona is number two in terms of the thousands of students in school choice right now. So the red states, one by one, Georgia, Utah, et cetera, are really taking the lead in school choice. But there is a dramatically important need in the blue states. I'm here in New York City, and I've been an advocate and supporter of public school choice for decades at this stage. I did some volunteer teaching, entrepreneurial teaching in grade schools in the late 90s, Jean. And I went to Crown Heights, Brooklyn, a very impoverished area. And when I went through that middle school to help teach them basically business, very, very simple business terms, that was the first time I went through a gun detector. This was in
Yeah.
1998. So the violence, the safety issues, as well as the dramatic deterioration of educational quality, all the students in that classroom, there were probably 22, there weren't enough desks. There were kids sitting on the windowsills. So we can also touch on the fact that the dramatic violence against against school choice by the teachers' unions makes me very, very upset because we don't know how the money's being spent. When I go into a classroom and I don't see enough supplies or I don't see enough basically equipment for the children to use, I wonder why it costs $38,000 a student to educate them in public school here in New York. What's happening to the money? How is it being spent? And why are children graduating without being able to read?
$38,000 a year per student on average in New York City.
New York City, yes, between the state funding, the property taxes, and 10% of the federal money, as well as 38,000. By contrast, in Florida, it costs $9,000 per student.
Yes,
So,
I was going to say in the Panhandle here, I'm aware of numbers at the school board levels in the 6 counties around me of between $6,000 and $12,000 a year.
correct.
Drilling down more specifically, but what I'm having trouble with is understanding. So your service is a platform service that these educational platforms sit on, like programs sit on a Microsoft platform.
Right. So I'll give you a quick example. Um, when a school choice program goes into effect, what happens is it has to be administered in a department of education or a department of treasury at the state level, because each state has its own definition of what school choice will be, and Jean, who will be eligible for school choice programs. So some states choose to make parents that are low income more eligible than families that may be higher middle income. They may only provide, or they might provide the educational school choices to parents that have a disabled child, you see. So every state has its own definition of how they will execute the school choice program. So the administrator is located in, let's say, the Department of Treasury. And what happens when school choice is enacted is they have they have a budget. So the state legislature will say, we will give you $50 million that goes towards the school choice program. So that $50 million comes out of the public school state contribution to public schools, right? And they give that money to thousands of different families. And so the administrator that's located in that state department has to account for every penny that is being allocated by the legislature. And Scola Labs provides the administrative platform to facilitate the accounting and the execution of that
It's an
program.
interesting point you bring up, the source of funds. You know, at least in Florida, most of the education is paid for, as it is in many states in the nation, from the property tax at the local level.
Correct.
Half
Correct.
the budget was the local county or city's property tax system that was funding education. In fact, in Escambia County, Florida here, we had nearly $1 billion budget. About $450 million of it was education. The other half was all other services of the county, including police and fire. And in that context, if I didn't like the education my son was getting in a given school system and wanted to move him into another a city or a county to get education there, I would be able to, and I would pay a stipend or fee to that county for the admission of that student in that school, but I wasn't credited for the taxes I was paying in my own hometown, which were earmarked in part for education. So my question to you is, if it's coming out of a state fund or a state credit, is it intended to, how is it look? Are we paying the school back directly from that stipend, or is the mother and father, the property owner of that student, being reimbursed to put their student into another system?
So the way it would work, Gene, is that the property tax, so think of this as a pie. And so there are three parts of the pie: state, local, which is property taxes, and then the federal. And so the property taxes that go towards the school in your zip code cannot be changed, cannot be moved. That money stays with that public school. The money that can move is the state portion, the 45% of that state portion. And so when the state legislature says, we're going to legislate $50 million so that 50,000 parents can send their children to whatever public school they want to send. It's that state portion that moves. But keep in mind, if the child decides to move, and right now across the country, without Florida as an example, we're looking at 680,000 students, Gene. So it's just a tiny microcosm, right? There are 49.5 million children in public schools around the country. There are 98,000 public schools with, again, almost 50 million students. So we're still talking about just a sliver of students that choose and families that choose to make this move. So when a parent, let's say Florida as an example, decides to take their child from one public school district to another school district, that's the state funds that go from one to the other. Because you live in Florida, you're still paying state taxes no matter, there are no state taxes. So it doesn't impact you one way or the other. Your property taxes are still going to support the school in your district, no matter what happens with the choice. And here's another point: that state funding that goes to the public school stays with the public school for 3 years, even when the student leaves. So when teachers' unions come out and they violently protest against public schools and people that support school choice or anti-teacher, nothing could be further from the truth, because the school district budget still stays relatively intact. And Florida has a very interesting case study because they've been doing this for so many years, for the last 25 years, roughly, that the public school system in general has actually improved academically, because school choice has brought in some competition that makes increase their academic.
That's the key word. That's the key word, Clara. I think you're mentioning is competition. We think of education, we think of college sports and college athletes, and even some competition at the high school level being sports based. But what you're doing through Schola Labs, correct me if I'm wrong, is introducing a competitive environment for the educational system at the state and local levels to become more competitive with each other from an academic point of view. I think that has just as much merit, if not more merit, and might bring our scores back up nationwide. What do you say?
Well, it certainly happened in Florida, and the group that's been doing this in Florida is called Step Up for Students. And that was founded by Jeb Bush, Step Up for Students, again, almost 30 years ago, just under 30 years ago, Gene. And so they have led the movement to make this happen. And so it's been a struggle, a very, very apocalyptic struggle that is not over yet. And it loses steam because politics, as you know, puts a clog into every, any
Oh,
benefit
yeah.
or shift. Public
Well,
schools, as we know them, were invented in the 1860s. And so this movement to change it has been monumental. And let me just add, if Donald Trump is elected president in November, he's promised to make school choice a national program. He wants to bring it, he's going to create a national school choice program, which would change the game.
well, there you go, Clara. That's where I was going with this. That means that your focus and your marketing and efforts, at least for Schola Labs, correct me if I'm wrong again, is not state by state based, red state, blue state based. It's based on a assistance because the standard. I don't mind the federal government setting standards. I have a problem with them getting involved with the administrative process, whether it's an election booth, which involves our ballots, or the standards of the construction of a highway, the highway system. But it is managed at state and local levels and maintained at state and local levels. Some of your data showed that I think it was 2021, if I remember reading your data correctly, about 7-point-something% of the nation was showing interest in this private school, charter school concept, the genesis away from public schools. Has that number gotten larger since 2021?
Oh, yes. And the tragedy of this, now again, I'm going to speak as a New Yorker, Gene. So there are 3,700 charter schools across the country, and charter schools are actually public schools. They cannot charge a tuition, but they are funded by nonprofit organizations or other parts of the school district. So they're funded privately, but they don't charge tuition to their parents. In New York, we have Success Academy, and it has been an uphill struggle for Eva Moskowitz to really run that academy. The children that go there are 99% Black or Hispanic. The family are low income, and these programs were set up to help that demographic specifically. And a huge percentage of those students go on to college. They graduate and go on to college and successful careers. But the blue states have been violently against these charter schools. Again, why? Because they don't like the competitive element that puts the public schools in a bad light,
And the teachers' unions being held more accountable.
And the teachers' unions. So President Biden, and our own governor here tried to shut down the expansion of public schools because in New York, we have a waiting list for parents that want to send their children to these charter schools that are located in Harlem, in the Bronx, et cetera, of 150,000. Think of that.
Where have you been, Clara Del Villar? We've needed this in our communities throughout the nation 10, 15 years ago when the deep state was beginning their secrets towards undermining education and the system of education. Folks, we're talking with Clara Del Villar. She's founder and owner of Schola Labs. She's in New York, and with her team of 6 folks, let me give you a little quick background. 28 to 30 years of experience in policy evaluation, successful financial industry career entrepreneur. She's also been in many entrepreneurial ventures, digital media, and very interesting, we haven't touched on it, energy technology. Her involvement has also been in prestigious organizations and been has had a strong commitment and excellence. Her leadership has shown it's come through with the way Schola Labs has propagated its strategy nationwide. And I think with President Trump in place, this synchronizes, Clara, correct me if I'm wrong again, this synchronizes nicely to the genesis of what we really want anyways, and that's more control of our educational system on so many levels for our infants, our children at the very earliest of ages, all the way up to college. And I love this competitive aspect too, which ties into the business chemistry of Donald Trump's thinking. The idea that we make school itself a competitive thing again. Physicists in high school that outmatch our students here in the United States. Physicists in China, I should say, in high school, who are advancing themselves at geometric rates and surpassing the United States, once a leader in the world in education, where the United States was once a leader in many other areas as well, is coming back. The door is swinging back the other way on so many levels, and Clara Del Villar is a perfect example, Schola Labs, of how that's happening. Clara, you want to touch on a few more points before we call it quits?
Well, I think you've summed up the importance of this issue and the passion certainly that I share, but also all the many amazing people that have been on this journey for the last 28 years, Jean. There's so many. And Florida, again, so many wonderful people and organizations in Florida and across the country have made championing the future, a future of unlimited opportunity for children across this nation. The young people today in school, in grade school, middle school, et cetera, are going to be facing a future where, as of today, we have $32 trillion in debt. We have an incredibly dysfunctional federal government. And so I think if they aren't prepared more robustly than ever before to handle whatever the future holds, they're going to be at a tremendous disadvantage. And I mean, in particular, the low-income communities, the Black, Hispanic communities, I think, that really have a desperate need for more opportunity and the tools in order to do that. We are not against teachers. We're pro opportunity. And so that's what really we're trying to focus on. And I think Donald Trump, this isn't a campaign, announcement, but I think we need to overlook some of the personal issues and really say, we need someone that's going to champion for these children and put everything else aside.
You hit the nail on the head. I just want someone to get something done. I remember when I was in politics. I remember chatting with you about this over dinner. You don't have to like me, but do you like what I've gotten done for you? And full stop right there. When he told me that he was interested in making sure that the mother and father of that student had more say over that child's education, we're part of a grand community, and the school system is taking on a role of owning the authorities and control over the student, the child, is crossing a line. It's one step too far for me. I think that we, the parents, just needed to be empowered to have that authority over our children. Look, there's a lot of social and political problems in our nation and around the world, but that doesn't mean the fundamental principles should be abandoned. It doesn't mean we should turn away from a quality education where mom and dad are participating in that process with a friendly teacher.
No question.
Who's invited over for dinner, who's it's a friendly environment, the teacher relationship.
We're in the 21st century. We're in the 21st century. And
Now
parents
things have changed.
The ability, yes, to decide what's the best educational choice for their children. That's not anti-teacher. In fact,
that's right.
That just brings more brain power to the decision on what's best for the child. And
so
that's
I see a few different paths you're taking. You're addressing a national standard that you hope Donald Trump is able to implement. Point number one. You are continuing your own personal company marketing at the state, maybe local levels, regional levels. And at the same time, your footprint's going to have to expand even for the homeschooling concept for mom and dad who say, hey, full stop, bad environment all over the place, pay me a stipend, state, pay me a stipend, county and city, for that which I'm now doing on my own for you, and that's teaching my student, my child. If I'm going to homeschool that student who's my child, uh, there's got to be a discount or a credit coming off my tax bill. And I think what you're talking about is sort of the beginning of that transformation. Now, I made a hell of a leap when I said take a credit off my bill because I'm teaching them at home.
Well,
But but what else? What else? I mean, I don't want to pay twice for the same education.
there are tax credits that are available in a couple of states. Again, Donald Trump would make those tax credits available to many more people in states. And this is in addition to the school choice issue,
Oh
Gene.
boy.
What that means is there are nonprofit organizations, Children's Scholarship Fund and others, that provide grants to parents so that they can also take their children to public school. Those donors would get a tax credit. So what that means is you're incentivizing donors to contribute personally to the educational future of parents that can't afford to send their children to Spence or Dalton that cost $60,000 a year. You see, because what we're discussing here is opening up opportunity for people that the wealthy already have, that if they don't like the public schools, they could send them to the best public, private schools in the country. Middle income, lower income people don't have that choice. We want to open it up so that they do.
Isn't it amazing that the AOC squad, the Bernie Sanders and the deep left who accused Donald Trump and the elite rich within the Republican Party of being disconnected from the mom and pop? I saw Donald Trump in a local restaurant the other day or store handing out $100 to someone at the counter who couldn't pay their bill. I haven't seen any of the AOC squad or Kamala doing any of that stuff. Talk about being worried about the real people in this nation.
You raised
I
the most
want to,
important issue. You raised the most
yeah,
important issue that I want to
well,
emphasize is that
that
those guys are so worried about the billionaires, of which there are only like 1,000, and not worried about the 10, 50 million, the 50 million youngsters that don't have opportunities. And they close it off by preventing school choice, by preventing charter schools, by preventing the educational tools that those families need to help
and
their children.
folks, Clara Del Villar and Schola Labs is a solution for that. Clara, how can they find you? Give us, for those watching and listening, please give us a plug now. How do they reach out to Schola Labs to get involved?
Well, certainly you can reach me at my email, clara@scolalabs.com, and I'm happy to respond to any questions or point into directions of the hundreds of organizations involved in this movement. And then my website is scolalabs.com. But you feel free to use an email and ask questions, seek any information or advice. I'm happy to spend time and help.
Clara, any closing comments you'd like to make?
Well, I like you, Gene. I am enthralled by people that take risk and build companies and build opportunities, because that's building opportunities. And to spend time with you, and you have a background that only emphasizes that in a way that should be highlighted by many. And I will remain an optimist for this country. The education, the freedom that it's provided, and the opportunities that it provided should not be diminished by political blather. It should
Oh
be
boy.
celebrated every day. And
Yeah,
I
you
hope
said a lot there, boy. You know, Clara, I'm humbled by your comment, and that's one of the reasons I like doing these podcasts. I have the chance to meet so many people from various walks of life, but this is a deep dive today on something that's probably below the radar. It's not the salacious commentary in the news of the moment, but it's the deeper issues that protect the longevity of our constitutional republic, our democracy. It's the educational system under which we were founded. It's so important to this nation. And I'm so impressed with a concept like Schola Labs coming up and designing a platform to give educational systems at the local level a mechanism to accelerate alternative education in a streamlined way and improving the quality of it in the process for the teacher, so the teacher can spend more time teaching, not being administratively wasting their time with reports. That means more face-to-face time with our students, our children, and you seem to be the solution for that. And what I'm trying to do on these podcasts is find more solutions.
I think that's an amazing benefit that you're sharing with so many, Gene, and I applaud it. I'm the daughter of immigrants that came to this country in the 1950s. And again, my parents left because of a dictatorship. And I just want to share, one can never diminish the incredible blessings that this country has and still has, no matter how negative no liberals have a tendency to portray it. And I don't want to call anybody out, but we have to constantly celebrate the opportunities here and not diminish,
You yeah, you brought up your early days. What's your heritage, and how did you end up here? Let's have that a few extra minutes on that story.
Sure. I am one of many that came here. My parents came here in the 1950s because of the dictatorship in the Dominican Republic. And so Trujillo was a very, like many, the violent dictator. My grandfather spoke out against him, and he paid with his life in prison and injected with turpentine and then killed, essentially. But this is a story that is reflected among millions of Americans that have come here over the last 200 years or more. And so they came here to New York, and my father was a young medical student. And then we ultimately moved to Pennsylvania. But I just want to end by saying my parents never lost their awe at the freedom that our country provided to people of all shapes and sizes. And so they celebrated that in our household growing up. And so that's probably why I was born, a flag waving American. They had hard times, and they certainly, had many obstacles along the way. But the point is that didn't diminish the opportunity that they wanted to share with us growing up, and which it remains very intact with me today.
I regret that this topic came up at the very end of our show. Your story mirrors mine. My grandparents were immigrants, and I remember in my early youth, my father and my grandfather having some words with each other. Don't worry about him learning Italian. Just let him. I've got to learn English. He doesn't have to learn Italian. And they're going on with this argument. It turns out my grandfather, who was a very proud immigrant who served in World War I for us, and was a medal recipient for his acts of heroism, was more concerned about America. He couldn't leave Italy fast enough after the Mussolini regime. And when he came to the United States, I remember before he died, he grabbed me and he said, "You serve your country." And I was a snot-nosed kid who didn't know what the heck. And I said, "Yeah, Gramp, I will." No. Did you hear me? You serve your country. You be a proud American. This is an Italian immigrant telling me to be a proud American. Yeah, Gramp, I will. Promise? I promise. 2 days later, he died.
Oh, Gene.
It got the best of me. And all my life, I spent my time trying to make it in this world. And so I focused on business and entrepreneurial projects and did very well for myself, thank God. But I couldn't serve my country and promise to serve his country because now I was much older. So I served my country by serving my county and getting elected and doing things in that way. And now I'm extending it further with shows like this with you. We are a nation of immigrants.
Yes.
We don't have a problem with immigrants coming into our nation. We have a problem with the illegal immigrants and the terrorists that sit within them, taking down that which is so precious to your father and grandfather and mine. And that's why I revere you being on with me today. And when I think about it, education is the absolute essential
Absolutely.
corpus of this nation. To look
Absolutely.
up on the wall and see the Declaration of Independence, our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and all the other papers that were written that were the founding documents.
Absolutely.
Remind us of just how lucky we really are. So I look at you, I hear a little accent. You look at me, you hear a little accent. I'm here in the South, I hear an accent. I go anywhere USA, I'm hearing accents. Welcome to America.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
And I'm proud to be part of the same nation that you are, and we both together can call ourselves Americans.
Yes.
Folks, Clara, give the folks your email and website address again, please.
Of course. Clara at scolalabs.com, and the company website, scolalabs.com. Thank you, Gene.
Folks, there's more here than meets the eye. She's one heck of an entrepreneur as well. So don't be.
Well, I'm taking lessons from you, Gene.
As they say, Clara, still waters run deep. Thank you for joining me here today, Clara. Clara Del Villar from Schola Labs. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on another episode of Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. See you soon.
Thanks for joining us for Gene Valentino's GrassRoots TruthCast. Be sure to like and subscribe, and God bless America.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.